Hi, welcome to our presentation on climate change and Japan. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about climate change in Japan. We want to share with you about how climate change is understood by Japanese people and some things that young people are doing about it. Unfortunately, two members on our team caught coronavirus this week, so I am doing the voice for this presentation without video. This is the overview of our presentation today. We are going to talk about environmental education, Japanese views of climate change, and youth efforts for climate change in Japan. Environmental education in Japan. The Japanese government promotes environmental education. The Japanese Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science, and Technology, also called the Ministry of Education, sets guidelines for teaching about environmental issues. So, all students in elementary school, junior high school, and high school take some courses related to the environment and environmental protection. Most Japanese grow up to be thankful of nature. We even say itadakimasu before eating, which is to say thank you for the food that we get from nature. Japan is also blessed with a beautiful natural environment, including scenic mountains and a beautiful ocean. About 2/3 of Japan is rugged mountains with forests. The population is mainly in big urban areas on the coast. We also have 4 seasons, and our culture and literature values the natural environment. But most young people live in the big cities, so we don't have much experience in nature. The Ministry of Education seems to be much more focused on things like ICT education rather than environmental education. So even searching for information on environmental education mainly gets results for the ICT environment in school rather than the natural environment. In general, environmental education has been conducted according to the principle of the Teacher's Guide for Environmental Education, and is reported to have been implemented mainly in the classes of life environmental studies, or social studies. During the 2010s, the idea of environmental education incorporating the viewpoints of education for sustainable development has gained ground. This is education which focuses on comprehensive issues such as environment, industry, culture, history, welfare, and many more things. It links the environment to diverse sectors such as the government, NPO, industry, research institutions, and so on, in order to consider the sustainability of different sectors. The national curriculum standards, which were enacted in 2020, incorporate the viewpoints of education for sustainable development, and as a result, conventional environmental education looks at the issue from the standpoint of economic sustainability. In our experience, many schools are not making enough progress in regards to environmental education, and young people finish high school without even information about the current environmental crisis or situation. In 2020 and 2021, a research institution, the Asahi Glass Foundation, did a national survey called Japanese Climate Crisis Awareness Survey. And this showed some interesting data. Starting in 2020, all stores in Japan had to start changing for plastic bags. This is a national effort to reduce plastic usage. About 3/4 of Japanese think that this effort helps bring awareness to the problem of plastic waste. Many students report that they do not get a plastic bag now, they have to pay for it. We think that this was a very good effort to reduce the plastic waste and CO2 emissions. It also showed the top environmental concerns of Japanese people were climate change, environmental pollution, social and economic policies, and population. This survey showed that people were overwhelmingly most concerned about climate change. The survey also asked which countries in the world do you think are the most advanced in tackling the problem of climate change. Most Japanese ranked Japan number 1, then Sweden, and Australia. But there is also a noticeable difference between the older generation and the younger generation. This survey divided the respondents into Generation Z, people ranging in the ages of 18 to 24, and adults, ages 25 to 69. Many of the adults did not actually rank Japan number 1. They ranked Sweden number 1. So the older population have a different perspective than the younger generation. We think that the younger generation is mainly influenced by the government curriculum on the environment, but the older people have more outside information. This survey also used the environmental Doomsday clock, which shows how concerned people are with the environmental crisis. Overall, in the world, we are now at 9:42 p.m. which shows a great deal of concern since it is creeping close to midnight. The survey also showed the regional times around the world on the environmental doomsday clock. For example, we can see that Western Europe is at 9:59, the Middle East is at 9:35, and Asia is currently at 9:44. But the participants in Japan seem to be much less concerned. Especially the younger generation in Japan seems to be unconcerned about the crisis. The orange clock on the left shows Generation Z is at 6:20. The green clock on the right shows that the adult average is 7. The clock on the bottom shows the average for Japanese experts, and that it's at 9:46. So clearly in Japan, there's a lack of awareness among young people about the climate crisis. We think that this is directly related to the education program by the Japanese Ministry of Education. But there are still many young people who understand what is happening and are very concerned about the environment. There are several organizations by young people that are trying to make a difference. We would like to share a video made by Climate Live Japan. It shows young people talking about climate change.
このままだとうちらの未来がやばい。
アメリカでは熱波による森林火災で東京の約2倍の面積がたった7日で消失した。
グリーンランドでは1960年に比べ6倍のスピードで氷が溶け、
ベネチアでは過去50年で最悪の高潮が甚大な被害をもたらした。
このままだと日本の未来がやばい。
100年に一度のはずの豪雨が毎年のように発生し、過去最大がいとも簡単に更新されていく。
2019年には世界の自然災害の中で日本の台風の被害総額がなんと世界1位だった。
なのに日本には圧倒的に危機感が足りない。
もはや気候変動なんてものじゃなくて、一刻の猶予もない気候危機なのに。
このまま舵取りを誰かに任せっぱなしにして、
これまでの価値観やルールの下で、
これからを生きる私たちの未来を左右されてもいいんだっけ。
だから今、本当に手遅れになる前に、
未来を生きる私たちの声を一つにし、無視できない大きさにして届けよう。
世界中の若い世代の意識と声と行動があれば、
必ず世界は軌道修正できるから。
うちらの声で世界は変えられる。
Fridays for Future Japan is another organization that is working for our future. It's a small movement in Japan, but it's centered on young people. Our university, Aoyama Gakuin University, is right across the street from the United Nations University in Tokyo. The demonstrations for Friday for Future have been held in front of the United Nations University right across the street from our main gate. So many of our own students have also participated. This is a photo from the Student Climate Crisis Summit held in Shibuya near our university. We know that we have a lot of work to do to change the consciousness of people in Japan, but we believe we can make a difference if we try. We want to thank Dr.Shew for his lectures on climate change and for the opportunity to present. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation.